Okay, so welcome to another live stream. I've been working on the layout a little bit more. I finally got down to the final modification to the appearance in Excel. Now I'll just go and do a bit of an overview. So I'll set that to a single screen. Okay, so let's go to the top. So to the top. So I've changed the layout quite a bit. Now I just want to go over it just quickly. So biggest changes are that I'm trying to go for a single column of data. Now previously I tried to maximize for print, for the print version. So what I try to do is maximize the usable space, so that when I would take a print job to Officeworks, for example, that it wouldn't use up a lot of paper. So now that I'm looking at more from a visual perspective and not actually keeping it in Microsoft Excel, but that I could print it in all sorts of different formats. What I'm doing is I'm making it so that it's mainly usable for the online Geopolitical. So a couple of things I've changed around. So the location, for example, got that on the side here, and the serial number is referring to the province overview sheet. Now I'll just go down the bottom. I'm not sure if you can see, province overview is just down here on the bottom. So these references are referring back to here. So whatever changes in here will then populate into here. It's not sourcing outside of this file for some of these things. So for the population of names and things like that, it's still referring to the master document, but when it comes to the actual... So whenever someone wants to create a barony, we can basically use the same file and then change it in the overview. Well, it starts with, I'll just click across the bottom. It starts with the province map creation and province creation. So going through the motions of creating the barony through province creation and map creation will then populate what goes on in province overview. Now, with every different with every new barony that comes on, it'll be effectively a copy all and then paste values only, so that the calculations stop. Now there are some calculations that are going to need to continue, mainly to do with, say for example, the Geopol C places sheet will need to... There will need to be elements in here that don't that aren't paste values only. Same in here. It'll be a living thing. So as people are settled in this place here, for example, police, as new people come into the area, refugees and immigrants, they'll be put into here, and they'll be put into the same line and in the same method as this. So what I've done is I've changed the sheet so that it's a single column, and what that means is that in the future, as more information about, say, this Master Alchemist Platinum Cobra is found out, things like additional skills and notes on what they've been up to, and any equipment they've found, treasure, like how much they've earned geopolitically, any of their personality, all those different aspects will populate out to the right hand side. And so just to start with, the only information that's known at the start of the game is this kind of information here, and it will progress across the right for each one of these. Keeping them in a block of 5, the intention is to make it so that these 5 individuals, they know each other and they're comrades. There's no necessarily a hierarchy. They just like hanging out together, and they're good friends. And so keeping them in this block of 5 is important. Now, I was considering about casualties and the effect on a group of 5 if there's casualties. My intention is, for example, that if this True Swan Apprentice Appraiser is a casualty, then I could effectively just black them out. If I black them out, then it means it's a group of 4, and they're not necessarily going to find a replacement or want to find a replacement. Imagine a tight-knit group of mates who lose one of their number. They're not just going to find somebody else to fill that role, straight away. It may be a long time for that to happen. So one of the things I was considering was to keep the block of 5 as a unit, and if there's casualties, then they remain part of the unit. And it may be that, if 3 of the 5 members of this party are casualties, that the remaining 2 may decide to split off, and they might individually make up, not as replacements, but it may be that I pull that group of 5 into another one that has a vacancy, signifying that the 2 remaining members of the party, maybe that they don't want to associate with each other. They've suffered the trauma of losing 3 good friends, and things like that can be represented in the game by the way that I treat the survivors of some of these geopolitical moves. So I don't want to make it so that casualties are lightly accepted, that there is a real consequence to the actions of anybody who's involved in the geopolitical. And the consequences are that these groups of 5, these tight-knit little families, are broken up and suffer the casualties. So all through it, you might notice I've got 5 and then 10, 15. I really wanted to have a visual representation of how many people are living in a town. So there are 60 people to start with at the start of the geopolitical campaign. A town will have a population of 60. Now, I've also put into the way that it's represented in a card system is that the population is calculated based on this sum calculation. So that changes. As I've discussed previously, I wanted to put in the defences. Good. I've set all the towns that are any place that's occupied at the start of the campaign. We'll start up with these ones as good, for example. Now, I was talking about the reference to political overview, and for example, the XY, the geographical location of the town of Caplice will be dictated by the province overview. So when people create the province through the province creation sheet, it will populate the province overview sheet, and the XY coordinates of the location of the town will be in this sheet. Then, when it comes to the card representation, this XY will refer to it, and as you can see up here, it refers to the province overview. So maybe that's not something that people need to know, but anyway. Now, in terms of tax revenue and things like that, so there's the tax revenue, there's also the revenue that's gained if you have the title deed to this town. So you can see that's the same amount. Now, the title deed card, I realise it's a very important card, and I could embed it into the treasure pile, but for the moment, when I am putting this together, I'm putting the title deed card, and I'm associated with the town, and this card will be removed and placed in the treasure deck so that when people are campaigning, it's just a piece of loot that can be found. which is a fairly important one because it means that whoever has the title deed will receive this amount in tax revenue, in rent revenue, regardless of if this is found or not. As I've said previously, the Baron will receive this amount in taxes. Anyway, so I've gone through and I've made it so that I've ignored things like the page breaks. So you might see that the page breaks are now wherever they want to be. I'm just going to ignore them, for the purposes of putting the list together. I found that trying to cater to page breaks, especially when the formatting, the type of paper the size of the paper that I'm wanting to use and things like that, margins can all change. The most important thing is this is to represent, and then once it's been represented, if we want to change the layout later on, well, that's later on. Anyway, so we've got the same calculations as we've talked about previously, and as you can see, the list goes on and on and on. So just going down through the towns into the hamlets, from the towns into the villages, and then the villages down into, so that's the last of the villages. Then it goes to, you can see that the difference in population. So the population of a town is 60, population of a village is 40, and then goes into hamlets, and the population of a hamlet is 20. So you can see that it's reducing, and that makes it faster for me to modify. I've been spending time modifying the layout, and I've finally got down to the towns. So I'm just going to go back down to where I was down to the farms. So I've got to farm, and that's where I got to before I decided that I'll do this live stream. So I'll just show you how I've been modifying it. And now on the left hand side you can see the province overview file. Now you can see the different columns. Now there's the XY here, and as you can see, this X here and this Y here are referring to the province creation sheet. The ID, so the ID for this town is generated also in province creation. So once they've been generated in province creation, same with the name of the place, my hope is that people create in province creation, then copy and paste values only, and then this here and this here and these two here will not change. Then we've got the amount of tax revenue. Now tax. Okay, so tax revenue, that's going to be, we'll bold that, and that's 10, so we'll make that 10 as well. Alright, so tax revenue, as you can see, it's starting to add up. This one here is doing a sum total, and at the moment you can see that these ones here are still saying #ref. Now what I'm going to do is just go through and make them all 0. I'll get back to those ones later, but just the reason I've just done that is so that I can F9 it, and you can see that up until we're at farm now, but the tax revenue from towns, villages, and hamlets is currently 3.5 million silver pieces per quarter. Now, that's quite a bit, and the thing is, it all spends. So, as I said previously, one of the most important things is that, the responsibilities of a geopolitical player the responsibilities towards, say, for example, if they have a title deed to a town, then they are responsible for the public works. They're responsible for repairing the defences, the granary, crypt system, and the sewer system. They're responsible for managing that as a group faction. This amount is not personal loot. This is money that's this is silver pieces that is allocated to their group faction. So, for example, the Baron will only receive. I'm trying to work out whether or not I will allocate them with 10% as their personal wealth. They can use for personal reasons, or 20%. It's one of those question marks that I haven't yet answered. I certainly want to make it so that the Barons remain hungry and that they want to participate as the leader of a geopolitical move in order to receive income that goes directly to their character and not to the province, not into central revenue for the barony. So the spending of taxes will be a ruling. It won't be that barons and lords can just arbitrarily spend every single amount that they receive. We'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. Anyway, I'm just going to show you how I've been modifying. So first things first, I'm going to zoom in on both a little bit more. So the first thing is up here, fortified farm of. So I click on equals, and then I click over onto the province overview, and then I hit return. And so that populates into this cell the name that is shown over here. So that's the first thing I do. And then what I've been doing is going down to, for example, the title deed. I hit equals, and then I refer to that cell that I've just done previously. I then pressed put in the $sign. Now the $sign makes it so that regardless of copying and pasting, it always remains D5360. If I didn't do that, then it would mean that it might change depending on how I copy and paste, and also depending on how, if I insert cells and things like this. So now that I've copied that, I'm just going to go down to this one here, and I'm going to paste that into the cell, and you can see that now that populates with the same figure. I copy, paste into that one as well. So that is just the start. So now I'll just continue. So the Renegade location, the location ID. So I go and click equals, and then I might click over here at province overview, and then it populates with the same ID number that was referred to over here. The same thing with the X and the Y, so equals, and then equals. Okay, so now that's populated the XY, the location ID number, and the names. Now what I've been doing is just making sure that I have making sure that the calculations are working. So things like the sum of the taxes. So as you can see, it's starting here at the 40,000, and then it's going down to here, and it's ending at the modifier. Now it's not quite where it needs to be, so that's 5485. And so up here, I just modified that, and as you can see, it's now changed this block to a different size. Now, the next thing is that you can see it says 40,000 here. Now, I don't think that that's correct. So an artisan is +1, +1, +1, so that's... No, actually, that's correct. So I'm just going to F9 it again, and you can see that it still remains at 40,000. So I believe that there's +1 bonus, +2, +3. So +3 bonus makes it a and then +4. So it's +4 because there's the 4 artisans here. So yes, that's correct. And then the same as down here as well. So 80,000 is the tax income from this particular farm. So now what I'm going to do finally is I go over to the province overview file, and I then click on equals, and then I refer to the cell in the Geopol C places. And then finally, as you can see up here, it's actually referring to this merged cell. Now it comes up with an error unless I strip out that. And then, as you can see, it's now referring to, it's got the same amount there as what is reflected over here. We can try something else, which is we can take this artisan here, for example, and we can make them an apprentice. Okay, so just by hitting return and then F9, you can now see that the amount of tax revenue is now down to 30,000 for this particular group of adventurers, and you can also see that it's reflected over in the province overview file as well. So I'll just change that back and F9 it again, and you can see that it recalculates to 40,000 here and recalculates to 80,000 there. So it's one of the reasons why Excel is a very powerful tool for what I'm trying to achieve here. So yes. Now as for the towns, villages, hamlet and farms, you might see, for example, this hamlet above, it is in the Daquin imperial style. I've made the first group of 5 having their allegiance to Daquin. Then the second 5 have their allegiance to Samrajay. Then the third is an allegiance to the Chakrapop. And then the final 5 that live in this hamlet have an allegiance to... Hang on, that's the other way around. Sorry. Daquin, then Samrajay, then Caesar 2, then Chakrapop. So anyway, down in the farm, however, I've decided that just for simplicity as well as for, there's lots of reasons why, but just to keep them allied with each other, it's a fairly tight-knit farm, and for them to have differences of political sentiment, I think that would be too messy. And plus, I'm wanting to have equal representation. You know, I managed to have equal representation when it came to a hamlet, but that's only because there are 20 people living in the hamlet, and because of that, I was able to have an equal representation. But I can't do that with farms. So anyway, moving on. As I said, I've got to this point in the modification to the appearance. So, and there are 12 farms, so I need to just keep processing through, but I should be able to multitask and talk while I'm doing so. So anyway, when it comes to these groups of 5, and things like the new people coming in and wanting to be involved in Renegades, my intention is to make it so that any of these NPCs can be converted over into player character. So the way that would work is that, well, effectively people can shop around. They can have a look at what's out there. They can hopefully watch the process, they can watch the progress of the campaign, and then they could decide that they are going to turn one of these NPCs into a player character. Now, that still they can still fully participate in the geopolitical. They are obliged to supply their services to the Baron on a annual basis as part of their militia duties. So aside from that, they're free-range chickens, and they can adventure and do their own thing. They can hire themselves out as mercenaries. They can participate in the live roleplay. They don't have to. They don't have to. They're not controlled by Renegade Theatre Company on a daily basis. It's really only updates, character updates, and things like this that would require the input from me or from any other representative of Renegades. So the difference between the way that a player character will progress is that it will be under my direction, whereas if it's a player character, it doesn't have my input as to how you want to progress and allocate your character points and things like that. So I think that I just completed this one. The main thing is, as I said, I've just learnt to just check and make sure. And there's another little trick as well. When you've got it zoomed in to a certain degree, you're able to pick up and adjust it manually, which is quite handy. And it means you don't have to go up and find the cell. You click on the cell, and then you click on the calculation, and then you find the appropriate visual representation that Excel provide you. Anyway, moving on. So as you can see, anytime you want to change the layout, it takes a fair bit of data entry and modification and things like that. So it's not an easy decision to make a change. You got to think about the amount of work and effort that's required to do so. And I'm justifying it in this case because if I'm going to represent this Renegade system online to all you people, I need to be able to show it in its best possible light. So it's not just an aesthetic reason. There's plenty of good reasons. I mean, part of me is just that I want to do it right, and I know that as a consequence of wanting to do it right, it means it takes a lot of time. And as I said previously, the modifications that I'm doing right now are not just for the tournament map. These changes will be applicable to every barony that is created. Anyone who wants to create a barony will effectively, these files will populate based on their decisions and their changes. The names of towns, villages, hamlets, and farms are they're generated. They're generated randomly from lists that I've basically put together that represent some of the towns in the mash in the area that the mash is generated from. So there's more information about mashes we can talk about later on, but the main thing is that the geographical location, this place, Krong Ram Ranong. Well, the other thing is just on pronunciations. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be capable of perfection when it comes to some of these pronunciations. What I'm hoping to do is make it so that the modern day area that I believe it's around Cambodia, Thailand area that effectively the names for the places in that region will be explored in the fantasy environment. The name here and this farm and everything to do with it, it's got no relationship at all. It's just that the name is derived from local towns, villages, hamlets, farms around the area that it's representing. So anyway, this list, these lists are put together for the 4 factions. Anyway, that's where they come from. So they're not just made up, they are actually real world locations. Now, I'm losing track of where I'm supposed to be working. So again, I can multitask. I'm pretty good at it, but sometimes I end up waffling. I was hoping to be able to do the multitasking and have it only affect me by maybe 10% in terms of my productivity. So we will see if that is the case. Anyway, so look, there is a fair bit of repetition in some of these modifications. I don't want to do this again and again. I'm wanting to do it once. Yeah, look, I have to be honest. I don't know whether or not we're going to be able to do this just one more time. It may be that some of the modifications I'm doing aren't, we find them not to be suitable, and that we have to do something again. We have to change the layout and all those things. I think the most important thing is to remain flexible, not get really try not to think about how much time I've spent on things like going back over the layout. Trying to think of how many iterations of layout that I've done so far, and it's probably quite a number. So now, where are we? Over here, and I'll add the tax revenue. And so, look, even a little farm is still generating 80,000 silver pieces in revenue. So it's quite an earner, little place like this, when it's done like that. Now, again, just adjusting and making sure that it stays within the cells. Okay, so I'm going to F9 it. I've also learnt to occasionally just F9 just to see if I've done everything correctly, because it shows up errors quite a bit. If there's a problem, Excel won't let you know straight away. Excel will spit the dummy by putting up a reference hashtag REF. So anyway, I've just done farm 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy them, and then I'm going to insert them, not paste them, but insert them. Then I'm going to change the farm, to farm 5, and then farm 6. Okay, now as I said, there's 12 farms, so now all I'm doing is I'm making it so that I can duplicate. Now, now that I did farm 1 through 4 correctly, then I should be able to just go through and modify now. It hopefully won't take as long. So we do need to change some things. So the first thing is this here needs to refer to this town here. So hitting that has now changed it to the same as over here in the province overview, and now you'll see that the title deed still shows the previous name, and so does this one here. However, if I F9 it, and it didn't work. Alright, so it's not perfect. So we're just going to have to do things manually. So again, this one here equals this one here. So sometimes you can get away with just copying and pasting and finding that it all works fine. You don't have to get stuck into it on an individual basis, but it doesn't always work out that way. So again, we're just going to have to go through and manually do things. Now, an interesting idea I had was that when I'm scheduling these live feeds, that I can talk to people about calling me up and I could answer their questions. And so instead of me having to think about what to talk about, that I can answer people's questions, and then they can keep me on track and they can prevent me from waffling. So that's just an idea. Quite happy to take phone calls and stuff while I'm doing the live streams. And what I might do is well, the problem is that if I put my phone number up on YouTube, then everyone would know it. I really don't have a problem with that, but it's already, well, there's privacy issues, there's things like that. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to consider ways to do that. Whether or not that means that people contact me on Facebook or on Messenger, and that I give my number to them that way. But that would be a way to do it. And I've also been told that I say quite a bit. Now, it's just that I don't have and also and again it takes a bit of time to try and work out what to say next and still do the work. So I'm trying to multitask, doing the best I can, and that may be that people are going to have to put up with me saying Now, so where are we? We've basically done casino, but we didn't put in the tax. That's what we didn't do. So yeah, having two windows open, it seems like I can get through quite a bit of work by doing it this way. There's plenty of other ways that I could do it, and I just look. I'm good, but I do struggle with. Well, anyway, I'm doing the best I can, and the bottom line is that gotta say, stop saying The bottom line is that I'm getting it done, and I've been doing this all alone for a long time, and I think that you guys deserve to know where I've been spending my time and what I've been doing, and that it's not just talk, that it's actually showing results. And as I said, I'm going to be running this 1st of the 7th as a live game. Okay, where are we? So I did that, but I did not do that. The other thing is that if someone sees me do a typo of some kind, then by all means, I'd like to know about it. I just realised that the alignment of this took up quite a bit of space, including cutting off style. So these are all little typesetting kind of problems, but I'm sure that we can overcome them. Anyway, The main thing is, as I said, I've been working in isolation for a long time. And yeah, look, I've spoken to lots of people. I've been enthusiastic and just wanted to share, and so I'd call people and say, hey, I just worked on this and this and this. And it kind of, I can understand that from other people's perspective, they might not necessarily have the big picture. They see me talking about small picture things, and that, why am I talking about such a small picture thing? I thought that you were further along than that. I thought that you'd created something else awesome. So when I've asked people about small stuff, it might be that I was just working on that particular aspect on that particular day. It's not really a reflection of me not having created content. I've created a bucket load of content, but it's about presenting it to people and showing people. And since I've decided to do the live stream, this is a way to show and demonstrate and hopefully inspire and all those things. So anyway, we've just completed the next set of farms. So now I'm going to go back up to this one, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to again paste it into, insert it, because we're not pasting anything, we're inserting. So alright, so we're up to farm 9. So this is, oops, okay, where are we? Farm 8. And for some reason I haven't copied the this hasn't copied correctly, so I'll undo that. So I've got no problem with making mistakes, providing I find out about them before I go too far. Okay, so farm 7, and that should be farm 8. But then it goes down to farm 6. Okay, so I need to undo again. Okay, that's what I did wrong. Okay. So I'm not sure if anyone followed what happened just then, but I just copied this incorrectly. So, it's just little tricks that I've picked up on. So what I didn't copy was all of this. So now copying from here down to here, and then going down to the bottom and inserting. That's looking better. Okay, so yeah, sometimes I don't pick up on the mistake, and that's a very unfortunate day, because some of these mistakes they tend to get larger and larger, and a snowball. So yeah, picking up on it before it gets to that point is really important. So yeah, I do. Look, I like finding these errors before. Now I'm just going to go through and delete these names right now. So the reason is that, look, I little tricks. I've made mistakes before, and I don't want to make them again. And yeah, so anyway, I'm going to F9 it again, and as you can see, it just stripped everything out. So there's no way that I can do this faster or that I'm aware of. There's so much. Excel is such a powerful tool that I've learnt so much since I've been using it, but there's always so much more to learn. And no longer do you have to refer to dummies, manuals, and things like that. All you have to do now is just Google search, and like seriously, you can find so many really cool methods of doing things and playing with Excel. So I'm really happy with the amount of knowledge that I've acquired on how to do things with Excel. I won't call myself an expert, but I'm certainly not afraid of trying. Some of the things with efficiency, like some of the calculations that I've used have been really clunky and inefficient, and then you find that there's there's a way to do the same thing that only requires you to use like one line of code, and not like three. I don't know, like if then type. There's so many different ways, and I don't even know how to speak the jargon. I don't even bother. I just like copy, paste, and make modifications to suit. Some of the most interesting ones are when you are searching for a particular sequence of words. Like you could search for, so you could go here, go if this cell includes in the fiefdom of, then 1. And so what that would do is return a value of 1 to this cell if it says in the fiefdom of. That kind of, look, these are just little tools that have come in handy when it comes to all of this creation. So the thing is that does it help in the real world? Well, probably not. The people who are masters at things like Microsoft Excel, who are working in databasing for small companies and things like this. Excel's not. It's good. It's not that good. There's people who will probably say, no, it's crap, and that there's so many other better tools. When I've talked about using Excel for any of this, there's people who can't believe that I'm using Excel because it is completely unsuitable. Some of the graphical work, like creating these maps, it's just back in the day. I remember using graph paper to draw dungeons. My first dungeon crawls or my first tower that I built, and I've used those kind of methods for quite a long time, and I'm so happy that I can use something like this because of the number crunching that I don't have to do. I can set it up so that it. Now something else that I've just realised is that there's no black line here. So I think that's a problem. That's a fault that I've picked up on. I'm trying to work out how it happened that there's no line there. So I'm going to insert, and then I'm going to I'm going to undo that, and I'm just going to finish the task. I'm up to farm 11. As I was saying that before, if I find errors, then sometimes just fixing them immediately is really important, because putting them off, you sometimes forget about them, and then you never get back to them. And every single problem can amplify and if I don't sort it out straight away, that it can have far-reaching effects. That's why, look, F9, it's F9 when you're talking about random number generators and talking about referring to, cells in other sheets and even cells in other documents. It's really important to just hit F9 every now and then to make sure that it's still there, and that oops. So, all right, yeah, just to make sure that it's not broken. Because look, Excel will tell you if something's broken quite frequently. Sometimes it's just going to ignore you and it won't tell you anything. So, but at least it tries. And the other thing is the calculations. If you create a calculation, then or a formula or whatever, and it fails, it will actually sometimes help you to work out where you failed and how you failed. Now, again, I realize that this style, the word style, has been cut out when it comes to a Geopol Imperial. I'm just going to have to go back and check that too. So Geopol Imperial, it seems that the mapping is hidden. Anyway, that this image is actually over the top of the style. Anyway, so back to finishing off. Okay, last one. So, hopefully nobody's going to ask me to pronounce some of these things. I'm quite happy to talk about my ignorance. My ignorance is extensive, but that's not necessarily. Sometimes it's laziness, sometimes it's look, I know I'd like to be able to pronounce some of these names, and the main thing is that if somebody wants to take on board one of these characters or one of these adventuring parties living in one of these towns, then they're going to probably want to find out what the correct pronunciation is as part of their research to create a three-dimensional character. So I'm not going to do everything for people, so I don't need to pronounce it if I don't have to pronounce it. I'd like to be able to pronounce it. At least I'm using, the real names of places that are close to the historical imperial influences. So I'm doing at least that. Anyway, back to the problem. So the problem was, as I think I said before, that firstly, in reverse order, I've looking at the Geopol and looking at Geopol fortifications to make sure that they're not covering the style. Now, I thought that I did that previously and I didn't say anything about it. There we go. There's another one. So it is possible that during the cutting and pasting, or the copying and inserting, that's where the problem starts. Okay, so we're just going down and visually looking at it to make sure that it's the same. Now, this block here, okay, and this block here. So I'm just going to insert a line. Then I'm going to copy that. Lose track of where I was. And then I'm going to paste that. Alright, now this line here, or this, so this is a merged cell, and this merged cell starts at the top of this, whereas this merged cell doesn't. So I'm just going to cheat, and then I'm going to increase the merge. I'm not sure if you picked up on how I did that. I mean, I'm not going to, this is not a tutorial on how to use Excel. Hopefully, once I've done this, nobody's going to have to ever do it again. Yeah, my intention is to make it so that I do it, nobody else has to do it. So yeah, look, just visually checking to make sure. Again, I don't think that I'm being pedantic. I do sometimes question why I invest so much time and energy into certain things, but I mean, maybe it's pride. I'm not really sure, but I just want to do a good job. So anyway, so the problem is that by inserting lines, as I said before about things snowballing and things like that, I'm just going to go through and make sure I'm doing them all in one go. So making sure that I don't have to do it a second time or a third time. I'm just looking for any of these farms that have got no top and bottom to them. Okay, now I'm going to F9 again. Okay, F9, and I'm going to check, and you can see that one's fine. So anytime that you insert a new line or make modifications like this, it can have consequences in that you're formatting, you know, especially things like making a calculation on a row. It can throw out the calculation. So just checking. You know, if I don't find an error, I'm very happy about that. And I'm not in any way upset about checking and finding nothing, because I don't want to find anything. So far, so good. And I'm sure that we've already been through ones that have been replaced. So no, looks like we're good. All right, so that's that. I think that I was going to show. I'm going to save. Okay, going to save that, and now I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to go back and go for a bit of a play into the overview file. So what I'm wanting to do is make it so that the overview is kind of like the living document for each province. So from the overview file, you should be able to get a snapshot of what's going on in a province in terms of tax revenues and in terms of, you know, population and things like that. So as you can see, sorry, didn't even realize so now we've got quarterly taxes coming up here, and they're showing, you know, 4.4 million. So that's quite a bit. So it all spends, as I said previously. Now I'm trying to verify that whether this is the annual income or the quarterly, and I'm thinking that for the purposes of the tournament, I think that I made this the taxes that are paid quarterly, but normally they would be annual. So Yeah, so what that means is that so a baron coming into the area does not get their taxes. So they start off the game with only like a certain small pool of money that they can spend. They can utilize the militia to achieve things, and if they take to the field as well, they can make more income from treasure and things like that. So if they are as the Baron, if they send a geopolitical force of militia out into the field and they don't command that group themselves, then 50% of the loot that is found will go to the central revenue of the barony. So they'll be able to use that for central revenue purposes, and they'll be able to take a certain amount of that as their personal income as well. So that's by sponsoring the move as the Baron. Now, if they take to the field as the leader of the expedition, then the barony will receive 50% as the sponsor, and then they will cop 25% as a personal income from being the leader. So 25% share of the loot as being the leader of the geopolitical expedition, and then the remaining 25% of the loot is shared amongst the militia. So that's the sort of standard breakdown when it comes to militia. Now, the other geopolitical groups, they may or may not operate according to the same rules. So it really is just that the militia they're obligated to perform certain militia duties. They can't be off doing things that aren't furthering the future stability of the province. They live there. They want the province to be restored to prosperity. So they will want to be assigned to things that are good. Things that are a bit shady, they may not be willing to be involved in. Anyway, rambling again. So, just looking at this, for example, the enter XXXX here. Now, this is the earldom fiefdom, as in where it belongs in the earldom of Leni. So, for example, on this map, when I look at it in paint.net, I can actually take the XY based off the actual screen. So wherever my mouse is on the screen, it will come up with XY coordinates. So that's the way that I'd like to do it. If I try to put in some kind of grid, some sort of artificial grid, and having an artificial XY, compared to simply just using the XY coordinates that are gained through paint.net. So that's what will be there. Because this is this creation here is for the island, I'm putting in the earldom affiliation as neutral, and the empire as well as neutral. So special source, well, I've done a special source for this map and for this province. So you could feasibly have a licensee baron creating the province, and then it goes to a second person who does the special source. Now, I've done all the special sources at the moment. It's a big step to get somebody to get involved in the special source, because really it is where the major secrecy of what I've been doing is, because it looks pretty special, and if I was to just give that away, that information away, it might be a bad thing. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I'm just going to go back to where I got to before. What my intention is now is that down the bottom we have the immigrants from the Samurai Imperium. Same with Caesar 2, same with Jackapop, same with Duckland. Then we've also got unaligned immigrants as well. So these cards will be in. There'll be cards that can be drawn. So as an encounter, you may encounter a group of unaligned immigrants who have come into the province, and then you can basically allocate them to somewhere to live. So anyone who has control, like a title deed to a town that has vacant accommodation, for example, and they've encountered some immigrants, they can assign them to the place that they have a title deed from, in which case they will receive added revenue from rent and stuff like that. The Lord or the Baron will not lose out from that because they still get taxes based on anyone who lives in their province. So it's a win-win for those, for either of those parties. The perfect world for a lord would be to have the title deed as well, because then effectively they're double dipping from, they're getting double the income from those people. What else is there? That's about it for the moment. Yes, I'm just going to continue to change all of the character representations to this same linear single column visual, because I think that extending out to the side of the character party and keeping the party together, keeping the character progression, keeping the character loot, effectively treating them not as individuals but as part of a small family, a small bunch of mates that campaign together. So by continuing with that, it's only if I make it so that if a person wants to engage in the geopolitical game and the LARP game, and they want to take on one of these characters as a player character, then this block would still be representing their character. They wouldn't get to re-roll it or recreate it, but they would start off with whatever's been revealed. So if this character party have been involved in like 4 geopolitical moves and they've acquired X amount of wealth, then it might be that I just blow, 50% of it. I just immediately wipe out 50% of it, and that they've drunk it or they've bought knickknacks with it or things like that, so that in terms of their savings, that maybe it's only 50% of what they've found. The remainder, if someone was to take on this group of 5 as a player character plus their 4 loyal companions, then they would get that collective pool. Now, I'm going to make it so that they can't just simply gut their companions, taking all their wealth and then taking it over to themselves. No, the individual NPCs, these are companions. They will be treated as such. They're not slaves. They're not. They're definitely not throwaway. And the consequence of losing one will be that it's blacked out and they don't get a replacement. In terms of recruiting into your comrade list, it may be that that's through hiring an individual, and then slowly, progressively, over many campaigns, they're no longer a hired individual. They become a comrade. But we can talk about that later. First thing is that, yes, I've still got a fair bit to do. Oh, there's one final thing, which is that now that I've done all these towns, villages, hamlets, and farms, if there are any of these towns, villages, hamlets, and farms that are undead infested, then this card won't be represented on the table. This title deed will go into the loot pile, and each of these adventuring parties that that would have lived in the town, for example, had it not been undead infested. Each of these adventuring parties will go into the pool of settlers, of immigrants. The only difference will be that, for example, if this fortified town of Chensi was undead infested, and this group of 5 here were to be encountered coming into the province as immigrants, then they would come in with the intention of finding this place and removing the undead from this place and settling this place. That these people here, their ancestors once lived in Chenesi, and they want to live in Chenesi as well. So, so that's what I'm trying to achieve, is that just by that one simple rule, it's basically got a bunch of NPCs who can not only be settled, but they're going to want to move into this. So they could be settled into a farm or a village or a hamlet, but they are going to leave as soon as any word comes through that this town, even if it's undead infested and ruined, these people are going to want to move in there. So whoever settled these people will lose them. So just another little thing. So anyway, I've waffled enough. I'm going to end it there, and hopefully people will join me for the next one. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, and finally, you can also read more information on renegadelarp.com, and people can feel free to send me a message via Messenger, or if you've got my phone number, give me a call, and it might be that we can arrange for a some kind of interview thing where I can answer questions, even if it's nothing to do with the work that I'm doing at the time during the live stream. I should be able to refer to things that are completely, totally different. And yes, I don't mind. I think that, look, I would say at least 10% reduction in the speed of me working away, and I'm willing to accept that. I mean, really, I'm willing to accept 20%. It doesn't really matter. I don't feel like it's really slowing me down that much, and I feel like at least sharing the progress. I feel like I'm achieving quite a bit with doing these live streams, so quite happy to continue. Anyway, all right. Hopefully people will hear from me later. All right.